But first, yet again, the Albanese government seems to be contradicting itself and letting down our allies when it comes to defence and foreign policy. It was revealed this morning that the Defence Minister Richard Marles was yet to respond to a formal request from the Ukrainians that we donate our fleet of retired Typhoon helicopters to them. Now, that request came in more than a month ago. And it was revealed then late this afternoon in breaking news that the Acting Defence Minister, Pat Conroy, had formally rejected that request. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that this really is not a huge ask, given the helicopters are grounded. We're not using them. They're going to be chopped up by our military and disposed of. Pat Conroy was asked about this today.
And I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals, but one, you're suggesting that we approach a government when we have no idea whether these aircraft are safe to fly.
Now, he's been caught out there. He's saying you're suggesting we contact the Ukrainians. No, they've already contacted you. That's a blatant mischaracterisation of the situation. They are asking us for assistance. For more on this, and we're rejecting them, we know that now this afternoon. For more on this, I'm joined now by Michael Shoebridge, the Director at Strategic Analysis Australia. Michael Shoebridge, we know there's been safety concerns about these helicopters, although I might add, though, we've been using them for a decade. But if the Ukrainians want them knowing that, and they're fighting a war, I think they've got bigger things to worry about than some minor issues with these choppers, we can't in all conscience chop them up for spare parts and bury the airframes. And these mixed messages between Conroy, the Prime Minister, and the Defence Minister Richard Marles, these guys aren't even on the same page.
No, Peter, this is not just sad, this is a major error by the Albanese government. The Ukrainians desperately need military helicopters. Their formal request says they want to use these helicopters to evacuate wounded Ukrainian soldiers from the front line and save lives. And sitting here in Canberra, Pat Conroy has said, oh, there are safety concerns, so we can't give them to you. Well, the safety concerns the Ukrainians have are that they're in a war and they need to do everything they can to protect their soldiers. We should help them by giving them things we're getting rid of and we can't even sell. The minister is being run by the Defence Department, and it turns out the only thing the Defence Department can do quickly is make mistakes.
Yeah, I was going to say that years ago I worked for Defence Minister Robert Hill, and it feels like right now the minister's not running defence, defence is running the minister.
Yes, and this idea that the disposal strategy, I heard Pat Conroy saying, oh, I'd need to take you through the timeline. In September, we decided on a disposal strategy for the helicopters, and the Ukrainians only asked them for us in December. Does that matter? If we've still got the helicopters and we haven't yet buried them, why don't we stick them on a ship and give them to the Ukrainians? The Ukrainians deal with all kinds of technology. They're flying very unsafe old Soviet helicopters now. These would be a real advantage to the Ukrainians in their war.
And I might add they're having a fair crack at it against the Russians. Everyone had written them off. We're about to hit 2 years of that conflict and they're still in the game. So let's give them all the help we can. I think it's crazy that we're going to cut them up for spare parts when they can need them to win the war against Putin. Let's go now, though, to those comments from the Chinese ambassador yesterday. And this claim, you know, this outrageous claim that somehow the Japanese were to blame. Now, last year, his own state media acknowledged this issue regarding the sonar was the fault of the Chinese military. Why on earth should we cop this revisionism from the ambassador?
Well, Peter, you're right. The Global Times last year, at the time of the incident, was very proud that the Chinese warship had used its sonar on our divers. It said it needed to do that to detect our real intentions. The thing about a communist system is you've got to believe that black is white one day and then white is black the next day. Whatever truth the party tells you, no matter how changeable it is. I don't think the Chinese ambassador for a moment thinks his story will be believed in Australia. I think he's just following orders from Beijing. To me, the bigger issue is it shows stabilised relations with China is a mirage. You cannot have a stable relationship with an aggressive, destabilising power, which is what China is.
Yeah, and I wonder how much we've been bought off by going to Beijing and looking like we've capitulated to all the Chinese asks, like, you know, don't complain about the Darwin port, which Labor before the election said we'll stop that deal. That's been whitewashed, and many other things. Before we go, I want to get your take on this aid funding we've just given to Palestine, and it's over $40 million now. Penny Wong's come out today and warned the Palestinian Authority, you know, you've got to spend it on healthcare and education. Don't let it end up in the hands of the terrorists. Now, they've got the money. We've committed the funding. How on earth are we going to make sure this doesn't happen?
Well, Penny Wong knows we can't make sure the Palestinian Authority doesn't hand some of it over to Hamas. This is just window dressing. She knows her words are meaningless, but she's saying them so she can tell us here in Australia she warned them. She knows it's an empty gesture.
It's just like the Chinese propaganda messaging back to their own people. It's a shocker, Michael. I'll leave it there. Thank you for your time as always.